What is up, guys? Private Eye Rush here. Welcome to another episode of the Private Eye Rush Show. I am your host, owner, operator, full-service private investigation and consulting firm. Links will be in the description below. Corporate theft investigations, litigation support, criminal defense investigations. We got it covered. As some of you know, I made a video before talking about the executive protection aspect of the Charlie Kirk assassination and how I believe that the head of security may have dropped the ball based on the information that he gave out during the Sean Ryan show. That's a whole different thing. Check that video out. Only posted it a few days ago. So next, what I want to do is what I started doing was I started talking to friends of mine who are ballistics experts. And no, they don't have a degree in ballistics from the college of whatever. But these are guys that have been loading ammo and shooting since they were children. One of them literally used to have to go out in the hills of Kentucky and shoot dinner. Otherwise, they wouldn't have eaten. And so, with his .22 rifle, he'd go out and shoot rabbits, and they'd have something to eat. So when I talked to him about 30-06, okay, so when I first heard about the Charlie Kirk assassination, the first thing that came out initially was that it was an M98 Mauser. I used to own a Mauser, but it was chambered in 8mm. So it was a German Mauser with German markings and all the rest of that stuff. Wish I hadn't gotten rid of it, but it's gone. And this one was chambered in 30-06. So still a 30 caliber round, very hard hitting, high power round, right? So one video I saw from a gentleman said that, okay, the reason the first thing I thought was, okay, why is there no exit wound? That doesn't make any sense because I know 140 yards, 30-06, that is an incredibly hard-hitting round. The human neck is not that sturdy, and it would have plowed right through. All right, not trying to be graphic, but it would have. Let's be honest. So one guy made a statement that kind of made sense at the time, and I was like, that might make sense until I started doing some more research into it. And so I'm going to play a video real quick. And so, well, the whole thing is this. So when you look at 30-06, the lightest round for 30-06 normally is about 110 grain, right? So let's go ahead to Gemini here. Gemini is usually pretty smart. Not always. Some of this AI stuff kind of gets it wrong sometimes, man, which, you would think large learning models or large language models would be a little bit smarter, but whatever. I guess they're in the infancy. They'll be a lot smarter 10 years from now, right? So let's go. What are the typical bullet weights for 30-06 ammunition?
The typical bullet weights for .3006 Springfield ammunition generally range from 125 grains to 220 grains. However, the most common and versatile bullet weights you will see for hunting and general target use are 150 grains, often used for smaller to medium-sized game like deer and antelope, and for general range shooting. They offer a flatter trajectory and higher velocity. 165 grains, or 168 grains, a very popular weight for an excellent balance of speed and penetration, making it a great all-around choice for deer, elk, and medium to large game. 180 grains, considered a standard for larger, tougher game like elk, moose, and black bear, as the heavier bullet provides deeper penetration and better energy retention at longer distances. Less common weights and uses. 110 to 130 grains, used for varmint hunting or reduced recoil loads, offering very high velocities. 200 to 220 grains, historically used for...
Okay, so 110 is the typical. Now, as I did more research, and that's typically for varminting. So varmint, small game, and someone said, well, why would they have that? Why not just get a different rifle? If you only had one rifle, they would try to make different loads or different bullet weights. And when I say bullet weights, the grain of the bullets, that's how heavy the bullet is. The actual projectile, not how much powder is in the charge, but how much the bullet weighs, right? So if you only have one rifle and you couldn't afford another one, well, then you tried to get a variety of different ammunition types and bullet weights and velocities to meet different needs. Okay, so on the higher end, 220, 180, wherever it was, 220 or whatever it was, elk, black bear, things of that nature, hard hitting round. That's the ammunition I have experience with, the heavier, harder hitting bullets. That's a significant round. When you shoot it, you know you shot a really potent round, right? And whatever's on the end of that is going to is going to pass away. It's going to be deleted. So the smaller bullets, the smaller bullet weights, they're going to be moving a lot faster. So when we talk about varmint rounds, 110, so we're talking about coyotes, maybe rabbits, whatever it might be, maybe raccoons, so small game. Coyotes, 25, 30 pounds, maybe on the bigger side. And then raccoons, they're tiny, maybe 20 pounds, maybe. That's if you got a really big raccoon and things of that nature. And then if you go to really, really small game, like groundhogs, then you're talking about like 22 or 17, point 17 caliber. Then, those are really, really, high precision rifles. And they're made for long distance shooting because groundhogs are literally almost psychic. All right, so when we talk about the Charlie Kirk assassination, people were speculating that it's a smaller round. One guy even said a 55 grain saboted round. So what a saboted round is, and this guy's going to explain it, but a saboted round is pretty much like, think of it if you got a size 10 foot, but you got a size 13 shoe, and you stuff a bunch of paper or whatever it is in the toe of the shoe so your foot actually fits in there without flopping around like a clown shoe. That's kind of what the saboted thing is. So they'll take the same casing and they'll put a little plastic cup around the projectile, the bottom of the projectile, and stuff it in there. So that way you get that smaller projectile moving out of that same cartridge, but it's going to be moving significantly faster, especially if you have the same powder load, right? So when we talked about that, I thought, okay, maybe that's possible because it's a smaller bullet, but it doesn't make sense because it's going to be moving a lot faster. So let's go ahead and listen to what this guy has to say about saboted rounds. It's a 30-06 saboted round, and then we'll talk some more.
LT Arms Cartridge of the Week. This week we'll look at one of the great oddities, the 30-06 Remington Accelerator. The Accelerator cartridges were introduced in 1977 and were made in 3 case sizes, 30-30, 308, and 30-06. The idea was to seat a 22 caliber bullet in a plastic 30 caliber sabot to give hunters a high-speed.
All right, see that? So this is the actual projectile right here. See that where my mouse is? Let me make it a little bit bigger. My mouse is right there, and that's the sabot or saboted part. So that's the part I talked about, how you have that little cup, you set the round in it, the actual projectile, and then that gets pushed into the casing. Then you've got the powder and the accelerant and the oh my god. Oh my God, you know what I'm talking about. I can't talk that. It's been no longer. I've been up since 2 a.m. Sorry. And so the idea was to push this smaller projectile out of a larger bore rifle, and that way you had more flexibility with that rifle. But listen to what he has to say.
Armor round they could use in their existing 30 caliber hunting rifle. In theory, it worked great. 22-250 performance out of your 308 rifle. In reality, not so much. The plastic sabot engraved the rifling, then fell off after exiting the muzzle. The bullet, which had no imparted spin, would begin to tumble, and accuracy was lost. 30-06 Remington Accelerator.
Okay, so 30-06 Remington Accelerator. And in theory, it was a good idea, but in practice, it did not work. But if you look at it from just the sheerly ballistics end of things, some of the muzzle velocity was over 4,000 feet per second. Think about that. A round, even if it's a tiny round, moving 4,000 feet per second. So your typical, say, 16-inch, what is it from a 20-inch barrel? I'm going to ask, because if I get it wrong, everybody's going to yell at me, all right? Muzzle velocity of a 55 grain, 5.56 out of a 20-inch barrel. Gemini.
The muzzle velocity of a 55 grain, 5.56 NATO round, fired from a 20-inch barrel, is typically in the range of 3,100 to 3,260 feet per second, FPS. This is the standard performance of the military spec M193 ammunition, which is the original
M193, right? So 55 grain. If you cut that barrel down, then you're losing maybe 400. So you maybe a little bit less than 3,000 feet per second. Still cooking. Imagine something at 4,000 feet per second. The thing is moving. And so, my point is that even with a lighter bullet weight, the human neck is not very big. Like, I've got a pretty good sized neck. Thankfully, because I got a really big head. There's no like my bowler, my hat is literally the largest size that they make, and which is kind of embarrassing. But this is what I got. What can I do? And so and again, I talked about this before. I've seen 3 neck wounds, or well, I saw one up close and personal, and I've seen the aftermath of 2 other neck wounds when it came to bullets being fired and someone being deleted. Okay, so 2 were by 7.62 by 54R, which is a very heavy hitting. Think Mosin Nagant, Dragunov, PSL, rifles like that. So it's a very hard hitting 30 caliber, heavy round. I used to own a Mosin Nagant. I gave it to a buddy of mine. That is a huge hunk of wood and steel. And everybody says they're incredibly inaccurate, but and it wasn't like it's not a tack driver. But at 100 yards, me and a buddy of mine went to town. Me and an old military buddy of mine and contractor buddy of mine went to town with it. We fired about maybe 110 rounds in a day, and we were using just a regular pie plate with I just drew some stars with a magic marker, and we were able to get about 2 MOA, maybe 2.5, and then it started to balloon up as we got more fatigue, because that thing is like. It's like think Mike Tyson punching you in the shoulder every time you squeeze that round off. It's a hard hitting round, but it's not as bad as people think it is. But that is a heavy hitting piece of ammunition and lead flying through the air. So the one individual who was shot in the neck, he was probably dead before he hit the ground. That was with an AK-47. I saw that one up close and personal. It was literally the damage to his neck was catastrophic. We still tried, first aid, but he was gone. Right. The other 2 I saw afterwards. One looked like, so those were 7.62 by 54R. One looked like someone took a giant ice cream scooper and just scooped out maybe 3/4 of the man's neck, and the other one was pretty much decapitated. Except for a few strands of skin. And so, the 30-06 round being used and this miracle neck thing, look, I'm not one to cry conspiracy theories. And so, usually when things come out, I try to take a more measured approach because everybody's going to be jumping to conclusions. Now, we're doing this in the absence of clear-cut information. Again, this is not an investigation. I had somebody accuse me, that's not an investigation. No, it's not an investigation. I'm commenting on the information that's available. To mount an investigation for me, I need to seek and have verified information. We don't have verified information. What we have is the stuff that was put out there. We were told it was a 30-06 rifle, and that the other casings were, but they didn't tell us what the bullet weights were. They told us that the rounds, the casings were engraved with different sayings or whatever it might be. And what I'm trying to say with this whole video is that the 30-06 narrative, there's very rare cases where this might make sense. And I'll give you an example. I have a buddy, ex-Marine shooter. I used to have shooting competitions with this guy, and he beat me every single time, especially with a rifle. With a pistol, I could hold my own or even beat him. With a rifle, because that's what he did. And he would load different loads for different rounds. And so I fired full power 30-06, but I've also fired some that he reduced the powder charge. And so, maybe that, and I'm just playing devil's advocate. I don't believe that we have been told the truth about the caliber. I've got to join that crew, as much as I hate to, because I know everybody jumps to everything being a conspiracy. Everything's not a conspiracy. But in this particular instance, we were told 30-06, and before one of you nerds come out there and says, oh, well, technically they said this. Well, they told us an M98 30-06 chambered in 30-06. That's what we were told. Now, I owned an 8mm a Mauser. It was an 8mm Mauser, though. And so that's a heavy-hitting round. I didn't know they made them in 30-06. Again, I'm not a ballistics expert. I have a lot of experience with 5.56. I have a lot of experience with 7.62 by 51. I got a lot of experience with 7.62 by 39. I got a lot of experience with 5.45 by 39. That's the AK-74 round. And and again, when we talk ballistically, have I seen rounds do weird things when it hits different things or human bodies? Yes, I have. I've seen rounds skip off guys' heads and give them concussions, but never penetrated their skulls. it happens. Things can happen. Weird things happen. So maybe with an extra thick skull or the right angle. There was a famous case here in the Orlando area where a female deputy got into a shootout in a garage with two gangbangers, two drug dealing knuckleheads, and she wound up winning. They wound up dying, but 245 rounds from 12 feet away skipped off a guy's skull and didn't penetrate his skull. Now, he would have been concussed had he lived. He did not, thankfully. He died, but she wound up getting shot up she got shot like 7 or 8 times, something like that. I met her, nice lady. Don't know how she's doing. I haven't talked to her for a long time. But so bullets do weird things. Case in point, the ballistic performance of the 5.56 out of a 20-inch barrel, that's what it was designed to do. It was designed to be a very high-velocity, small 22 on steroids, pretty much. 0.223, 5.56 is literally a kind of, you could compare it to a 22 on steroids, right? But it's a very potent round. Now, as the distances increase, then its penetrating power decreases sharply. But the reason the Soviets designed the AK-74, which fires the 5.45 by 39 versus the 5.45 by 45, which is what we shoot, that's the 5.56, is because they saw the ballistic capability, the wound cavities, the wound, the way the bullet would tumble, yaw inside the human body. And so they would see, entry wounds in the left pec and an exit wound out the right buttock. And so they designed the 5.45 by 39 out of the same chassis, pretty much the AK chassis, but a little bit smaller, for the lower tolerances and everything else. But it's an AK, so it's still rugged. I have an AK-74. I'm actually selling it to a buddy of mine. The ammo is becoming less and less available. I think there was a ban put on it by the Obama administration years ago. I used to have a couple of spam cans. Those are all gone. So buddy of mine loves it. He's an AK file. He literally owns about 45 AK pattern rifles. Like, it's ridiculous, man, but that's his thing. And he's got like 20 SKSs. like he's got Norinco Mac 90s. That's his thing. And so I was telling him about it. I said, look, you know what? And even then, we examined the barrel. The barrel is not in the best shape. It was still pretty accurate, but, at some point it's going to go downhill. And he was like, dude, I'll buy it from you. And I was like, well, yeah, sure. Okay. But the Soviets used it during the Afghan conflict, all right? Back in the 80s, we helped them win that by giving them the Stinger. And that's what killed them, because they couldn't use the Hind helicopter anymore because that Stinger missile in the hands of the Afghan Mujahideen were taking down those Hind helicopters. Before then, the Soviets were giving those dudes hell. And the Afghans are tough, but we'll go into the politic part of things. But so they gave that bullet the nickname of the poison bullet or the devil's bullet. The reason for that is the bullet would enter, say, in your right hip, and it would tumble and yaw and spin and bounce around inside your rib cage, tearing everything up, and you were going to die. But you were going to die after a very long time, and you were going to be in excruciating, agonizing pain, hence the term devil's bullet or the poison bullet. You were going to go, but you were going to die in some cave somewhere with very little medical care, and you were going to go in extreme amounts of pain. And so ballistically, when Charlie Kirk's head of security on the Sean Ryan show discussed the wound and the autopsy, he said what happened was the bullet entered and then took a downward and hit his spine and took a downward trajectory. That does happen, but would that happen with a 30-06, either a larger hunting load with all that penetrating power, 180 grains plus, or even a 55 grain saboted round, which, as we just heard, wasn't very accurate, but something cooking that fast, man, I really don't. Again, miracles can happen, so I'm always going to give myself a way out because I've seen bullets do some weird things, but this just does not pass the smell test. I hate to get on board the conspiracy thing, man. I hate to be that guy, but I really, and I've done a lot of gymnastics to try to see if I could figure out a way for this to make make any kind of sense. There's a lot of things that don't make sense. Let's be real. A bunch of this stuff doesn't make sense. Even with some of the explanations we've gotten, it just doesn't make sense. And I get it. The federal government, the FBI, is going to keep things close to the vest until the trial because it's in their favor to do so. They don't want to give, too much information out. And so we'll have to see what happens. Again, we still don't know everything. So that caveat is that we don't have all the information yet. So before you flame me in the comments saying that I'm being lazy, I'm not being lazy. I've actually done some ballistics research. I had a talk with that buddy of mine, old military comrade, and we also worked together for a private military company together. And we also he was also one of my guys on that protection detail when I was head of security for that very large congregation protecting a prominent religious leader. I did that for 3.5 years. And I swear every single white hair I have on my face and in my head today came from that particular responsibility. So at the end of the day, let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys think. It's been a long day. I've been up since 2 this morning, guys. So give me a little bit of slack. If I'm not completely the sharpest right now, but this just doesn't. I mean, everything is just really, really questionable. And again, I hate to be the guy that I'm not going to go into the whole, who was colluding. I really don't think his protection team was complicit. I think they dropped the ball, or the head of security dropped the ball based on what he said. And again, I'm not mad at anybody. I'm not trying to put anybody down, but I'm calling things the way I see them based on my experience as a person who's worked for decades on protection details, whether it be executive protection or private security details. I had one person say, everybody comes out here with their credentials. But guess what? This is what I've done. And when people read my bio, and then they go verify it. Guess what? I've done everything I've said, and if nothing else, I literally don't put everything out there that I've done over the years, just because. So at the end of the day, I'm not here trying to blow smoke up anybody's backside. I will always call things to the best of my knowledge. That doesn't mean that I am omnipotent. I don't know everything. I don't understand everything. I can't explain every single thing, but the things I know well. It doesn't mean I can't make a mistake, but I do not think I'm making a mistake when it comes to the head of security and the text he put out, and the ballistic stuff. Just even the saboted round apparently wasn't very accurate. So it would spin and tumble, and I actually had a rifle like that. I actually bought an AK years ago that didn't have a chrome line barrel. And a lot of the steel case ammo was Berdan primed. Berdan primer in the ammo was very corrosive, and if you didn't clean that rifle right away, meaning pouring water down the barrel, literally hot water down the barrel to clean it and get all that stuff out, the barrel would become pitted and corroded, and that's what happened with that one. So those AK rounds would go rattling down the damn barrel, very little spin, and literally at 25 yards, it was keyholing. Horrible deal. I bought it from a place out in Arizona. I'm not going to put their name out there. They are a horrible firearms manufacturer. They were linked to a problematic situation during the Obama administration that ended with a Customs Border Patrol agent losing his life. So I'm not going to put their name out there, but they suck. They absolutely suck as a dealer. They sold me a rifle that was garbage, and they knew it. Now, my problem was when I bought it, I have this habit of doing this. I used to have this habit of doing this. I would buy firearms, and I just wouldn't fire them right away. I wouldn't fire them just because I just had so much stuff to do, and I had other firearms I was dealing with, and I wound up, and I could have returned it after like 30 days, but it was well after 30 days. It was like 8-9 months when I went and fired it, and it was a disaster. I was out there with another Marine shooter buddy of mine, and we were firing, and we weren't even hitting paper at 100 yards, like the regular target. I wanted to zero it, and I was like, what the heck is going on? He tried to shoot. He said, you forget how to shoot? I said, no. He started shooting, and we were seeing dust fly on the ground at 100 yards. It's like, oh, my gosh. Garbage. Anyway, got on a side note, on a tangent. Do me a favor, guys. If you've gotten any value out of this, please like, subscribe, share. I may try to go into more of this stuff if you guys want me to. Maybe I'll even get that buddy of mine on and do a live video call with him at some point about ballistics. But I don't think we need to. This doesn't It just doesn't make sense, guys. Unless there's some piece of information we're missing that I don't know. And if it is, you know what? Correct me. Put it down in the comment section. I appreciate everybody's comments. Again, I try to get things right. I'm not perfect, but I'm not going to lie to you guys on purpose. So, anyways, your boy Private Eye Russ. Doesn't make sense, guys. Doesn't make sense. I will talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.